Commercial Construction Coffee Talk fans. Thanks for chiming in. My name's David, of course, and I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction Renovation magazine. Hey, actually, we're digital now, but this is what it used to look like when it was in print form. Got JL over my cover. Got Mr. Chris from Mammoth Holdings Car Wash. Tim Holton. I got the chicken guy above me too. Got a hotelier coming up on my next cover next week. Just had a multi-family gig last month. People are eating it up on the web, and had another, I don't know, 2.3 million people hit our website consuming content. So all in all, looking outside. It's the dog days of summer. Probably waiting for another thunderstorm to come through here and dump some rain. That's Atlanta weather for you. It's hot all day, about 4:30 to 6 or 7. Thunderstorm, but a mile away, it might not even rain. You never know. But we'll take the water because the lake's up there, and we like to keep the lake at full pool as much as possible because Lake Lanier, it's 59 miles of coastline, and that water is used to feed all of the farmers downstream, all the way into southern Georgia, into Florida. And the other lake on the other side of town, Lake Altoona, that goes down into Alabama, Tennessee, and maybe even Mississippi, depending on which way the water's flowing in the tributaries, etc. So anyway, I hope everybody's staying nice and cool out there. If you're working out there on a construction site, make sure you're drinking lots of water, staying hydrated, and being safe on that site, most importantly. So, today I've got a really couple of cool guests. With everything going on with inflation and labor shortages, and everybody's trying to find project managers and superintendents, and everybody's busy, better busy than not these days. Food's on everybody's mind because everything's inflation. You go in the grocery store and everything's going up in price, and it's just without food you can't survive. A couple of weeks ago I had an online retailer that was dealing with local farmers and how they market their product, and he built his business and so forth. Today we're going to talk more food because, like I said, it's in the news every day, and we have two gentlemen, both out of Dallas. And they're with a company called Restorative Farms. And what they do is they actually have a gig with the prison system where they help people that are coming out of incarceration. They've done their time, and they help them, with the farming aspect, with building the farm, the construction, the maintenance, and dealing with the product itself, and getting it into the community, the local community, and helping the community with food distribution, etc. So in my top left corner, depending on how you're seeing it on the view, I've got Owen Lynch. He's one of the co-founders of Restorative Farms. He's also a professor at SMU, and that's what he teaches, agricultural, et cetera, down there at the university. Go Ponies. And down at the bottom, I've got Brad Bowe, my old bud that I've known forever. We're both only 26, but he's also one of the co-founders. So Owen, Brad, I want you to say hello to our audience out there on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk.
Good.
Hi, nice to be with you today.
Yep, nice.
Yeah, good afternoon. There you go. And so Owen's up on vacation up in Rhode Island, on Block Island, and enjoying himself. So we thank him for taking some time out, while he recharges his battery. And Brad's down in Dallas, and I'm sitting here in up here below Lake Lanier in Atlanta, just north of downtown. So the way it works, guys, is I'm going to give you a couple minutes each just to kind of tell us your story of where you grew up, where you went to school, if you went to school, how how you got to where you are today. And then we'll talk about the last 24 months of the roller coaster that we've all gone through, and lessons learned, and what exciting things that Restorative Farms has coming down the pipeline. And then you'll leave one positive thought or phrase with our audience, and then we'll close it out. So with that said, you know what, Owen, I'll let you go first. You can break the ice here. So the floor is yours. Tell us your story.
Okay. Thank you. So kind of a strange story. I grew up in London, England. I grew up in North London and then moved to South London. I was, thinking about doing many different things in my life, but I got a really bad knee injury and had to kind of recalibrate myself. So I decided to go to school in the United States for a couple of years, and I loved it, and I stayed. Almost by accident. Every year I came as an exchange student at first for 1 year. And then I went to UNC Chapel Hill and had a great time. Go Tar Heels.
Yeah,
And
go Tar Heels. Uh-huh.
and so I stayed, and then I got, one of my professors asked me to go to, if I considered grad school, and I did, and then I met an American girl and got married, and I raised my family in Dallas, where I went to SMU. I was very fortunate to get my doctorate at SMU at A&M, and then get a position at SMU and get tenure within my first job, which isn't usual. And really, what happened for me was, I've had all these blessings, and worked hard and had good luck. And with tenure, I wanted to do something that was different than traditional academics. I didn't only want to study a problem and look for solutions and systemic solutions like I do in my work, but actually implement them and help them actually come to fruition, and see if I could build a model that we could then scale and put all over the country. And I found out at the time that I got tenure, all this freedom in a job. I found out about this thing called food deserts, which were areas of town that were high concentration of poverty, no access to healthy food, typically also the deserts of many kinds, economic opportunities, high incarceration rates, high Title I schooling, large amount of high school dropouts, low retail value in their homes. And Dallas has an area that's roughly the size of the city of Atlanta that's considered a food desert. So it's one of the largest in the country. And so it just kind of fell into that problem came to my attention as I got the freedom of tenure to focus on something long term. And I'm myself faith driven as well, and said, well, if this is where I'm supposed to be, until somebody better comes along, let me put my oar in. And so I've been working on this with people like Brad for the last 10 years, looking for solutions to food deserts in the city in which I work and study in. So that's how I got here.
Okay, Brad, I know your story, but you can tell it.
Yeah, well, I was born in Montreal and grew up in Miami and Chicago and St. Louis, and moved to Dallas in 1980. I kind of came of age in the construction industry as a carpenter, then founded a remodeling company in Dallas that was transitioned to a store fixture company. And I think this is where you and I met in New York at a trade show in probably 1985 or 1986.
Yeah.
I think we were both like 12 years old, right?
Yeah.
And didn't know what I was doing, but like you, being an entrepreneur, I was always looking for problems to solve, and that company became successful. I sold it, and then started exploring the world of retail technology. When retailing was starting to transition to this thing called the internet. So I founded a company called Where It's At, which became a newsletter discussing new retail technologies that were going to be online. And that became a consulting company. And I was approached by Dell Computer to help them develop their Dell Direct Store program. And consulted with them as a subcontractor for several years. Built the Dell Direct Store program, then did work with Hewlett Packard and E-Ink and people like that. And then thought about retiring in 2007 and did. And it was wonderful. There was a month where the phone didn't ring and nobody bothered me, and the phone didn't ring and nobody bothered me. A month later, I started up again, started consulting with some other companies, and was actually working with Toyota to design their new Scion showroom with a group, and had a thought of getting into entertainment because I had friends in the music industry, and went to Comic-Con to explore avenues there to meet people. And at Comic-Con had Sudden Cardiac Arrest was revived, and it kind of underscored my values and kind of redirected me. So then I thought about retiring. I bought a ranch in East Texas to explore a passion I had around regenerative agriculture. I mean, at that point, I recognized this thing called global warming was coming. So I was going to have this ranch and put in solar and put in a well and learn how to grow my own food, and started meeting young farmers out there and seeing the obstacles they had. And again, me like you as an entrepreneur, I thought, well, heck, there's something I can do here. I can figure this out, and started trying to work with them and looked at the food scene in Dallas. I was introduced to the term food desert, which Owen ably described. In those years, like 2014 or 2015, I was shocked to find out that Dallas, for cities over 1 million population, was #1 for childhood poverty, with probably 20 or 30 billionaires #1 for childhood poverty with over 40 food deserts. And I thought maybe there's something I can do about this. So started investigating food deserts and people who are doing things in food deserts, and kind of approaching that with the view of an entrepreneur and a pragmatic business person wants something that was scalable, that would have an impact, would have a high return on investment, not financially, but for effort and time. It's something that have a huge impact, where the bulk of our efforts and time would actually go to solving the problem. So to further that journey, my research started hosting monthly meetings called Meetings of the Mind to find people who are involved in that space. And basically we'd get together with 20 or 30 people once a month and say, who are you? What do you do? What do you need? But don't tell me you need money. Everybody here needs money. And found out different people. Then I met this guy called Owen Lynch. And Owen had more than the kumbaya thought, more than a thought and a prayer. He had a pragmatic plan, which me as a business person recognized as being viable and impactful. And that led us to co-founding Restorative Farms in 2017.
Very, very cool. And so, you know, you start Restorative Farms, you start, you know, because I've seen your pictures that you've posted and stuff, as, I've seen your journey, on the web, on LinkedIn, et cetera. And tell us, after you met Owen, how that, just like a construction project, you have an idea, you get the prototype going, and, talk about that whole, thing, that process.
Right. Owen had been involved in nonprofits before and had put a lot of effort into a nonprofit, a lot of effort and heart and sweat and tears. And because of issues that were primarily political, that did not come to fruition. But we recognized that he had set the groundwork of something that we could do better. And the focus of that was growing food for the community, because food is the center of all of that. But unlike other urban farms, we were going to grow food with a mission to grow food that could provide jobs for people and a career. So kind of mission one was to grow food the community can afford, to grow jobs and economic opportunities for people. And kind of the third part of that holy grail, be able to pay for it by what we produce. And we recognized that we could do that. We could create something that was a template and could be scalable. And that's part of the key, to create something that's not dependent on us as founders or personalities, but there could be a template that we could share with people in other communities or other cities, sort of a book where you could say, here's what we did, here's what we did wrong, here's what we did right. I think we also recognized the need for creating an agrisystem around that farm, which is simple, but maybe a complicated issue as well. I may let Owen describe aspects of that.
Go ahead. My first, before
I get
what's the actual, what's a typical farm, like a square footage? Like when you have a prototype, like if you're building a restaurant chain, a fast food or, a big box store, they're X amount of square feet, they're going to have a roof. They're going to, what's a square footage on a restorative farm, a basic one, just so people have an idea of, what we're talking. Is it, because I've always seen pictures of like the stuff that you're growing. So I haven't seen the whole thing.
Well, we sort of have four iterations, right? Go ahead, Owen.
Go ahead, Owen. Go ahead.
So I think so we really were looking at the actual soil farm being about 2 lots of and the areas where we were working in South Dallas, there's about 1/3 of all the lots are abandoned. So a 2-lot, they're plentiful. And we have found many along the Dart line. The Dart used them to construct the Dart line in the South Dallas. And so along the line by every station, they had these roughly about the size of 2 normal city lots, 100 feet wide, 150 feet long, plots of land that we were looking at as our template standard size. Now there's different types of growing. And so what we're really doing is maximizing square feet, much more, and making sure we get lots of different turns of per square foot of plants, and growing vertically as well as much as possible. So with that, we're actually looking at we do something. It's not so much acreage; it's usage. And so that's how we get enough production to be close to being profitable but certainly have enough to feed and supply the community and start creating a market. So the other things we do is we supplement that with other types of growing, hydroponic, and we do that in shipping containers, the size of 2 shipping containers fused together with a pump house and a shipping float rack system. And then we also use greenhouses as seedling farms to input the plants in the beginning. So we're utilizing different types of structures and making very, very specialized jobs for each to maximize production and create a really efficient system. You should think of us more like an urban farm factory than just an urban farm. In fact, we're utilizing the principles of McDonald's: efficiency, predictability, calculability, control. How can we create a system that uses all of its inputs, reduces its outputs, but then is efficient as possible? Because that's the only way, in the scale that we're growing, you can be competitive and do the proper training to create sustainability. So that's kind of where we are. And that got a little wonky, but as you know, people working in construction recognize that you have to have a really, if you're going to have a small amount of space, but you got to compete, you have to really maximize that space as much as possible to get as much profitability out of every square foot. In our case, it's food production. And we're trying to utilize different technologies and different strategies to do that, but also train people to utilize those so they can be successful.
So you know, normally you'll have, you know, construction crew, you'll hire a contractor, you know, a brand will hire a contractor or a project management firm, depending on how they're set up to do the build and so forth. You guys are actually working with the prison system, if I understand correctly, to help to have those guys that are coming out of incarceration, that have done their time, and to learn how to build, farm, and, you know, kind of the whole gig. Am I correct? So they can maybe take it to their own community, or, and if I'm wrong, tell me wrong. I've just, you know, because that's what I've read.
So you're very close. So we're called Restorative Farms. Part of it is this idea of restorative justice, which is where people help fix and help make the neighborhood they came from better. Sometimes the neighborhood that they committed crimes in. Also, the neighborhood has been heavily, our lead farmer, for example, was put in prison for 25 years for a crime he didn't commit. He's part of the Innocence Project. So the usage of very, very strict policing in this community has meant a large amount of the men, particularly, have experienced the prison, have gone into prison, sometimes multiple times for minor offenses, but this makes them almost unemployable. And so in the particular area that we're working, Brad was already on a board for a nonprofit, Miles of Freedom, that was trying to work with bringing people who are coming out of prison and helping them re-entry into society so that they can do better for themselves, but also they could also help the society they were entering in better. But it's very, very difficult to do once you have that black mark on your record. So we realized there was a whole labor source here of people coming out of prison who were willing to work, some of them who had experience farming in prison. Our lead farmer, who, once again, Tyrone Day is a co-founder, who was incarcerated wrongfully, he had his horticultural degree while in prison, was able to take those skills and interests and then apply them in the community that they're from. And so it's really important that not only are we hiring people in the community in which we grow, but actually that we're giving jobs to people who really are left out and not thought about and kind of discarded. And so we're able to take an empty lot and turn it into a vibrant plot. But we're also able to take a person who hasn't had as much opportunity and train them to become entrepreneurs and farmers. That's ultimately our goal, that they will become their own franchisee farm, like a McDonald's. And they'll have their own franchise farm that will feed into our system as they start to develop plans and special growing areas. So the goal is down the dart line, having hundreds of farms. I mean, right now our 10-year goal is 5 years. I mean, 10 farms in 5 years, but our goal is to have multiple farms, each of them from one of our farmers who trained with us, who then forms their own farm in one of these kind of, you know, plots, as we discussed. So that's kind of how we are trying not only to make the food more accessible to the community, but also find people who are also are not being utilized well, just like the lots, and convert them into something that is highly productive and successful for their own community and themselves. As Brad often says, you know, if you want to give somebody, the best way to give somebody opportunity is to give them money in their pocket, right? And that their labor is being converted into a living. That's how you give somebody dignity and a second chance. So that's part of the idea.
The lots that you're doing the farms on, did the city own them, or were they private property? How does that work?
They're owned by DART, which is Dallas Area Rapid Transit.
Okay.
So as they built out the train line, they acquired lots for staging. Mm-hmm. So the lot we acquired was filled with concrete and rebar and stuff like that. And next door was a lot that contained a trap house, which was an abandoned juke joint, which became a center for drug activity and people like that. So all that is gone now, and we have, of that 1 acre, we have half an acre that is a real we call it precision agricultural farm, which means we're growing food professionally, using as little resources as possible to produce the most food, because this is the future of agriculture. So we're not just growing food to grow food, we're growing food with a professional perspective. This is the kind of farm that we need. We're going through a record drought in Texas, 17 or 18 days in a row over 100 degrees. This separates the community gardeners from the farmers, and we're growing farmers. And keep in mind, this is a community where 700 people a month are dumped onto the streets from the Texas prison system, where 40% of the men have a prison experience by the time they're 30. And as Owen pointed out, as you don't personally know, but if someone's been in prison, their future is often they're in a different kind of prison. And we believe we can create opportunities for these people to be like you and I are, entrepreneurs, right? Where you can create your own future and your own prosperity.
So I think a nice way to think about is that the other thing about the project is taking over these juke joint, for example, that was a nuisance to the property. It's uplifted all the values of the properties around. And so there's lots of now buildings going on in the community around our farm. It's creating what social scientists are now calling agrihoods, where you take an area that has been depleted, you actually put a farm in the middle of it, a small farm that produces food. It's attractive, it's a green space, it reduces that island effect. It provides local jobs. There's people at the farms, so there's activity and people watching, and then neighborhood can grow around it and be revitalized through it. So those off-balance, off-sheet values that we don't normally think about really will help, I think, as ways lots of cities can think about how can we take areas that are not being productive, that are high crime, that may have some issues, and how do we really turn them and start to regenerate some growth organically, using, no pun intended, from the bottom up. And the farms are one way of doing that. So we found. So that's where it's gotten exciting.
So when you grow the produce or the products that you have on the farm, how does it do people just come to the farm and buy it, or do you market on a website, or how does that work? Because basically go ahead.
So there's we have lots of strategies, and we're trying to work many of them because we're trying to create markets, not just farms. So because there isn't any right now, and Dallas as a whole has been recognized through the Rockefeller Risk Assessment as one of the cities that is the most vulnerable, and I'm sure Atlanta is too, because of lack of access to local fresh food. For something like COVID shuts that system down, there's not enough sustainability, or because they're relying on food from Mexico, or they're relying on food from California or Arizona being shipped in, which is highly efficient and effective, but not very resistant or resilient. So part of our goal is to create markets. So one of the things we did was what are called CSAs, which are really just weekly packages of food. And we have about 10 to 15 servings in each CSA of a different type of vegetable. About 8 or 7 of them are grown at one of our farms. And then the 3 other ones are either a local entrepreneur's product or other farmers that we're buying from them in bulk, so that they get a good return on their investment. So we're giving opportunities to other local farmers too, sometimes rural. So even building the connection between the urban and rural farmers, we create these packages of food and we sell those to people in North Dallas at retail value rates. In fact, what it costs us to produce them, still cheaper than they could buy it in a store. And they get local fresh food, which is much better nutritionally valued than what you typically buy in a grocery store. We sell the same CSA in our community, but our community can't afford, typically, some can, and many do, many are welcome to do, but most of our community, they couldn't afford that package of CSA that we sell to. So we've had great sponsors like Tito's and Toyota and Meadows Foundation who have come in and said, we'll take that delta and we'll pay, the community pays for the CSA every week, and we'll pay that difference to make the farmers whole. And that's how we pay our farmers, through their production. Because as we know, when you're building a house, if you pay somebody on promise, the house never gets built, right? But if you pay somebody on what they produce, they're going to produce, and you inspect what you expect. And so we're teaching our farmers to grow towards the market. They're being paid by what they actually produce, a high quality product. And then our customers are all paying for it to the ability that they can. And some of our local nonprofits, some of our local companies like Cosmos Energy and Tito's and Toyota, for example, like I explained, have come in and recognized the value of this program and help us make sure that the community can also have access to the product. Brad is also doing restaurant sales because our product is so superior to what you could buy in the grocery store. And we're also working with the nonprofit Brighter Bites to get our food into students who get food at the end of the week because they need nutritional supplements, but they don't have access to fresh food. So we'll also be sending local farm fresh products into that program as a pilot this spring. So we're testing multiple avenues. If we see something that's viable, we test it. If it works, we do more, and then we're trying to grow as many market outlets as possible so our farmers are paid by what they produce. Because both Brad and I want to walk away at some point and have this project be self-sustaining. And our farmers are only going to be self-sustaining if they can be profitable in what they do. So
I should interject, the term CSA stands for community supported agriculture. So it's as if, David, you and I and 50 of our neighbors go to a farmer and say, we'll buy a weekly share of your produce. So for $35, we get a bag of fresh produce. What we're doing differently is bringing in 4 to 6 South Dallas aspiring farmers and what they're growing, and 1 or 2 food entrepreneurs, like someone that might be making relish or preserves. And we're integrating that with 2 or 3 East Texas traditional farmers to work with us. So we're blending communities and culture, getting people to rub shoulders together and share learnings and lift up other entrepreneurs, growing entrepreneurs. The vision for this is quite large. We have a $9 billion food system. There's probably $1 billion opportunity to grow local food. There's no farmers. So we're working with farmers to help them become farmers and grow and fill that gap. So there's a lot of exciting aspects to what we're doing.
Listen, I don't read the news, and I do all my research online, and I don't go down the rabbit holes. I take everything as it comes, but I do see a lot of the farms, they're getting bought out by these big conglomerates, and nothing against them, but the little guy, just like small businesses drive this country, the small farmers, there can be more of them than the bigger guys. The sum is bigger than the whole. So, and you're definitely right. Listen, I came from Philadelphia. I'm sure that there are some of those areas up there as well. Obviously a different type of climate, but you look at any major city. I don't care if it's LA, if it's Dallas, if it's Atlanta, if it's New York, Philly, Denver, Colorado. I'm sure all of these places have these areas that are, could be redeveloped. The people don't want to go in there. It's just like when, with the retailer, they have 1,000 stores, and then there'll be a couple of stores that keep getting broken into, in a certain area around the country. They close those stores because the insurance, they don't want to pay it and whatever. And then that community's left with nothing. Let's say that they were, maybe let's say it was a drugstore, and that store is not there anymore. Then they got to travel to get their meds or whatever it might be. So having that local food distribution area with the pride in the area, in the community. Plus, as the community develops, maybe more retail comes in, you know, and it just, you know, as you said, you know, the tide lifts everybody, you know,
Yep.
up. Am I correct?
Yep.
Plus,
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think there's
go ahead.
so that's, I think you hit on two things that are connected but are different. One is the idea of the when you have 90% of the people in the community who are working having to leave that community to go work, and when you have 98% of the people who want to buy anything have to leave that community to go buy anything, all the economic activity is taken out of that community there, and all the purchasing power is taken out of that community, and there's no incentive for companies to come in and bring something back in, because the people are going and getting on the train or going in their car with friends and getting to the markets where they already have stores. And that's been that way for 40 to 60 years. So there's this hole, though, these communities that, as you're saying, as you're right, that are resource poor, and job incentive poor, and things to be proud of in their community. And there's a lot of culture and community that is undervalued and not observed, because the news always focuses on what bleeds leads. But there is a lot there that can be nourished, and the farm is a nice way to do that. On the other side, to bring on your comment that I think is interesting, is that the industrial farm model is extremely efficient and effective at producing what it produces when all conditions are correct. But to do that, it's just affecting the soil, and it's mass producing the same product in the same land by reproducing and putting fertilizer back into that soil, and it's destroying the microbial health of that soil. We're going to have to go back to small farms as that situation gets worse over the next 5 to 10 years with climate change. As a research scholar, this is one of the reasons I'm studying this, is that the small farms and alternative ways of getting food are going to become paramount to our success and sustainability in the next 20 years, as climate change gets worse and as the soil health is also deteriorating at a massive rate, at an incredible rate. So these models that we're testing now in Dallas, that are also being tested in Philadelphia, they're also being tested in Atlanta. These models that are being tested are not just to feed food desert communities, they're going to be needed to feed all communities, because we need to change the way we work and relate to our food. So that's why these programs are of interest to academics beyond just economic revitalization. They're going to be needed for us to rethink our way we source our food in our country. And as we know, it's a battleship that's going to take a long time to turn around, but it should have turned around about 5 years ago. So maybe I'm being too.
No, I just, someone sent me a picture. I forget what platform it was. And he sent me a picture, and he said, instead of putting your sod in your house, you should have corn out there or whatever, because you're putting all the water in there to grow grass, and you could be growing your own food. And it was a house, and this guy had all this, instead of his front yard, and flowers, whatever, but where the grass was, it was all plants, it was all,
right.
And
So
it made me think. And then when I saw Brad's thing, I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta have these guys on, because, it's like, I have a piece of land up on the lake. I want to build, so I'm waiting for things to settle down. Anyway, I don't even want to put sod in my house. I want to put AstroTurf in the backyard, because I'm done watering. I don't want to water. I don't want to cut the grass anymore. I don't want to do any of that stuff. Now, will my HOA let me put up corn stalks or whatever? But my wife and I we have a little poison ivy contracting company that we do, and I was out doing this poison ivy clearance job probably a couple weekends ago. Anyway, this lady told me that she'd been living in that house for like 30, 40 years, but when they originally bought the house, the whole front yard was all corn and vegetables and whatever. But now it was done, but she showed me a picture of what it looked like. And I was like, that is amazing. She goes, oh yeah, we everybody around here used to just grow everything, and we would, barter, trade, and, and all that stuff. And they were, this is right across Gwinnett County and Rockdale County. If people it's kind of east Atlanta, and out in the burbs. And, but it was an amazing thing. you know. And then I
Yeah.
got this, I saw this picture on LinkedIn, or someone sent it to me, and it was a guy in a house, and he was growing his own produce. And
But there's a segment on CBS National News tonight, and it's titled something like "The Answer to Your Budget Problems May Be in Your Backyard," and it's about growing some of your own food.
yeah, no,
Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely.
Let me say something.
Go ahead.
Sorry, let me say one. I'll try not to be too wonky, but if you look up victory gardens in World War II, America during the Second World War, and England as well, produced over half of its food consumption from its own backyards. And so I grew up in North London. After the war, we still had whole sections of the area I grew up in was bombed out, and those were all victory gardens that were continued post-war. And so one of the things that we did during COVID, which was one of Brad's ideas and our partner's ideas, is we actually sent out shipping boxes. Brad, you can describe them better than I can, but basically we send you everything and deliver to your front door, everything for you to grow, including the plants that are seasonally selected and grown for you, that you just put into the ground that can have a garden in about 10 minutes in your house. And then you can put an integrated irrigation system in to reduce water use. And this is one of the businesses that we're spinning off. It's called our GroBox program. But Brad, you could talk about how simple it was and what it is, and how that's another. I believe you're right, though. People take their own initiative, and if they get return on their investment and can better food for their family, from their backyard, people are going to start seeing the value in these. But somebody needs to help them do it.
And the GroBox is like a gateway drug to growing your own food. So there's shipping containers they use in Europe. They knock down, and they open up, and they stack to various heights. So we downsize it from 4 feet by 4 feet to 32 by 26. So it fits in a car, and a woman can handle it. So we sell that to two callers, creates a 50.5-inch high raised garden with 6 cubic feet of mixed growing medium, and then seedlings that we grow in our seedling farm. We grow 40,000 seedlings a year in our small seedling farm. So we've created incremental income for 5 of our employees. And these boxes are delivered to suburban homes, and people start growing their own food. And something magical happens, not just growing your own food, what a lesson it is for your kids to see where food comes from. There's so many side effects of it. They're so beneficial. Becomes a little kind of evangelistic missive. I have 2 of them actually in my front yard, where right in my lawn where I'm growing basil, not much else in this heat, but it gets people, it's contagious, and people start growing their own food. And who knows where that's going to go to, right?
Now, that awesome conversation. Listen, I'm a nice Jewish boy. I go to church, and I live in a pretty nice area. But you know what? Every week I go to the store. I get some tuna fish, some top ramen, some canned food, and I bring it because some of the kids that go to the local school, even though I live in a nice area, they're hungry. And the church goes and delivers these backpacks to these kids. And some of these kids are embarrassed that they have to have them, but they turn in their backpacks every week, that they collect them. And then at the church on Sunday, everybody brings their food in, and they put together these backpacks so these kids don't go hungry, every day. And people don't realize it, because they don't see it, because they live in a nice area, but there are people that are struggling. And I've been doing it for a long, long time. And not that I'm looking for a medal or anything, but I didn't realize it was happening until I went there, and I was like, hey, this is a really cool thing, and it's helping the community, but I'm telling these grow boxes that you guys have, I'd love to see one of those. You got to send me, I don't think I've seen it, in our communication, Brad, and stuff, the last couple of months, but.
Well, they are designed to ship UPS. That was part of our thinking, that we could, fit the UPS shipping requirements, which isn't cheap anymore, of course.
No.
But right.
Diesel, gas, listen, that hopefully that all changed, coming down the pike here.
Right.
Well, gentlemen, this is
Tito's, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I said Tito sponsored us and sent 400 around the country during COVID, using their logistics system to set up local small community gardens at churches and schools. So it's something that's really easily adoptable.
Mhm.
You can go on our website, restorativefarms.org, and see and look at the grow boxes right there.
You know, I always talk about, you know, the labor shortage, you know, bring back shop class and so forth. And, you know, kids today, they don't even know how to farm. So this would be like a really, you know, a nice segue from what I'm doing. There's an outfit I work with called Rock the Trades, and they want to teach people how to, you know, be a, you know, a
Yeah.
welder or a plumber, or think about being an electrician, or think about, instead of going to college, you get a piece of paper, nothing against SMU, but getting a piece of paper that it's not worth its, you know, weight, you know, it is. And then they're stuck without getting a job when they could go to trade school and learn something, work with their hands, and be you know, to help that shortage that's happening right now. And the same thing could happen with, you know, with these boxes. So I'm very intrigued by this whole discussion. I think, you know, Brad and I actually, Owen, had discussed about actually maybe even doing a roundtable on this and putting it in the magazine to kind of plant a seed, because we have all sorts of people that, you know, read us. And now that we're digital, we have such a, you know, a reach. And, you know, listen, once you have a website on the web, you're a global company. You might be in Dallas, but you're global. So you never know where, you know, this whole thing will go. So with that said, if there was one phrase or positive thought that you want to leave with our audience on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk, what would it be? And I'll let Owen go first.
I'll use the phrase from our company, which is grow a better Dallas. We can really use local growing to grow better cities and communities.
Okay, Brad?
You know what drives me, you know the term tikkun olam, right? You're a nice Jewish boy, repair the world. I mean, that's why we're here, right? So to leave the world a better place for us being here. But part of that is growing. We often say, we do have those crises of faith where some days things don't seem to be working, but there's that old saying, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. The next best time is today. So we're planting those seeds. And I think Owen and I both see that young people who, we have an intern program at one of the local colleges. And months later, we'll get an email from one of these kids who moved on saying how this experience has transformed them and transformed their career path. So we're hopefully changing the world for the good.
Hey, in every one of my columns, I always end it with keep the faith. And I always say the day you stop learning is the day you should go do something else.
Yeah.
So not only did I learn a lot today, just in your conversation, I'm gonna tell you right now, when I'm driving around, I'm gonna be looking at for these desert areas that you're talking about, because I'm sure I've seen them, but now I'm gonna be on the lookout for them. And just like when I had the Market Wagon guy, gents on a couple of weeks ago, I didn't know that they had 2 distribution centers in Atlanta. You know, so I just told him, you know, I just sent him an email, you know, he said, you saw the video and the podcast was up. And I said, yeah, I'm going to place my first order. I'm going to tell you how the thing works. Same thing with you guys. I'd love to get, you know, one of those boxes and test it out. And I think I'm going to definitely put this, you know, in the magazine, you know, if we can put the roundtable together, because I think a lot of people out there would love to give back. You know, a lot of companies give back to their communities and their, you know, whatever their charities or whatever it might be. But this kind of gig, you know, not only does it help the guys coming out of prison, it helps the community in general.
Yeah, yes.
Everybody needs food, and it's a lesson that you can take forever. So hats off to both of you. That's all I've got to say. And you know, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And if anybody out there on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk wanted to reach out to either one of you and talk about this, or get involved, or be a sponsor, how would they reach out to you and find you?
Well, they can email Owen. I'm Brad Boa, BRADBOA @gmail. So just reach out.
And Owen?
And I'm Owen Lynch at SMU, but it's olynch@smu.edu. So it's pretty simple. But if you look up SMU and Owen Hanley Lynch, my name will come up.
Is there a website for Restorative Farms or not?
Restorative
There it is,
Farms.org.
Restorativfarms.org. There you go.
Yep.
So
Yep.
if anybody out there, you know, in Commercial Construction Coffee Talk land, you know, wherever you might be, if you're interested in talking to these gentlemen, restorativfarms.org, or email them both. And I think you got nothing to lose and a lot to gain. And listen, we're all in this together. You know, food is, it's like water. You know, you can't live without it. And right now, you know, the country is what it is, going through the crisis because of labor shortage, high food prices, gas. You know, I can go, you know, every day I'm just drained. I go to bed, I recharge my battery, and I go through it again, and you know, keep the faith that, you know, something's going to happen, and, you know, something's going to give here. But you guys are doing a really good thing, and that's all I'm going to say. You guys are doing a really good thing, and I'm so glad I had you on here. So
Thank you, David.
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you, David, and
yeah.
your listeners for the spotlight.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, everybody out there on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk land, listen, give these gents a call, and you know, if you want to get involved, great. And you know, if you have kids and they haven't farmed before, hey, what a better Christmas gift or a Thanksgiving thing to have, you know, come in and, you know, start farming. And you know, no better day. I would say, you know, I'm trying to get advertisers. No better time than the present to have new customers. Hey, here's an opportunity for you to help your family, and, you know, and other people see it, and, you know, it just, you know, it kind of just you know, mushrooms. So that's my goal here. So with that, everybody, it's now August, the beginning of August. School just started here in Atlanta. The school buses are on the road. You know, some of the people up north, you got to wait till Labor Day. But everybody stay cool, drink lots of water, stay hydrated, and you know, enjoy the rest of the day. Listen, we're going into Q3. It's going to be Thanksgiving, Christmas before you know, and boom, we're going to close 2022, and then we're going to go into 2023.
Right.
So, everybody be safe out there, and we will see you next time. And Owen, say goodbye from Rhode Island. We're on vacation.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.
And
Yep,
Brad,
thank
say
you.
goodbye from Big D.
Thank you, David. Yep, thank you. Yep.
And we will see you next time on another episode of Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. Owen, I look forward to meeting you in person. And Brad, I haven't seen you forever. You know, we'll get together, all right?
Very good. Thanks
Thank you,
again.
gentlemen.
All right.
We'll talk.